Hello, welcome to another video. Today we'll be creating this beautiful snake game, and I will also add music to it for the snake eating food and background music and all the basically music which can be which I can include in this video. So let's start off by making the index.html file, and I have already created some of the basically all the images which I will be using and all the folders. So I have created the style.css, and now I'll be creating my JavaScript file. And now let's start off with the div of class body. Now inside the div of class body, I will give it a ID of score box, so that which represent the score. Now I will give it a class of maybe ID of high score box, high score, and I will give it a 0. I will change it with the help of JavaScript later on. I will give it create another div of ID of board, so that for the board of the snake, and let's connect my JavaScript. I will also connect my CSS with it. Now I've already created my index.html. Let's open it. Okay, now let's start to design or basically game. Give it a margin of 0, padding of 0 as well. Now for the body, give it a background of URL, and I will add all the images which I have already used in the description of this video. I will give it a min height of 100 VH, background size of 100 VW, 100 VW. Now you can see that my snake is there. Now let's give it a background repeat of no repeat. I don't want it to repeat, and display of flex, and justify content center, line item center, so that everything, and to solve the responsive issues as well. Now let's take the score box of ID of score box, and inside the score box give it a position of absolute, a top of 9 pixels, a right of 200 pixels, font size of 39 pixels, and a font of bold, basically font weight of bold. Now give it any font family you want. Now let's take the high score box, ID of high score box, and inside the high score box give it a position of absolute, give it a top of 59 pixels, right of 1540 pixels, font size of 39 pixels, font weight of bold, font family I have given. Now you can see the score and high score. Now let's start by our board, the main board of our snake, where the snake will be moving, and give it a background of linear gradient. Inside the linear gradient, choose the RGB of 176, 236 and 170, and another RGB of 236, 236, 167. Okay, now give it a width of 9 vmin, height of 92 vmin, and a border of 2 pixels solid and a black border. Give it a display of grid, and a grid template rows will be repeat 18 1FR, and same copy and paste it, and do the same with columns. Okay, now you can see that my board is there. Now for the head of the snake, basically I will create the head of the snake and all the remaining things in the JavaScript, but I'm just styling it beforehand. So I want the head of the snake to look like, and should have a background of linear gradient RGB of 240, 124, 124, and another RGB of 228, 228, and 129, and the last bracket. Give it a border of 2 pixels solid, RGB of 345, 34, 434. Give it a transform of scale 1.02. Now give it a border radius of 9 pixels. Now for my snake, for the length of you can say the length of my snake, or how the snake color should be, I will give it a background of purple. I know I have not created these classes, but I will create them in my JavaScript. Give it a border of 0.25 VMN, solid black for the snake, and give it a border radius of 12 pixels. Now how should the food should look like? So I will give it a red and purplish linear gradient and a border of 0.25 VMN solid black, border radius of 8 pixels. You are unable to see these because I have not created them in JavaScript. And once I create them in JavaScript, you will be able to see them. Now let's create all the variables which I will be needing, or which I will need to use in my in this to create this game. I have created a input div of x0, y0 basically, and a food sound. Let's connect the sounds. I told you that I will be attaching sounds with it as well. You can see that I have already using the you can use other sounds or other music as well for the snake eating food, or snake hitting itself or hitting the wall, or snake adding another audio of game over and a move sound. So when the snake is moving, what music should I see? Move.mp3. And for the last as well, music sound, audio, music/music.mp3. You can use your own music as well. Basically this will be a complete project. You can change the speed of the snake or later on as well. I have just given a 19 speed, a score of 0, and last spin time of 0. When I'll use these variables, you will know what are they really for, or what they really means. Now let's create a snake of 13, 15, x of 13 and y of 15. Now food should be 6 and y should be 7. Game, now I'm also commenting it. Game function, use the function of main. For the main, I have created a C time. Basically, I should have created this at the end, but I'm creating it at the start, so you get an idea to how the entire thing will, or how the entire flow will work. Now let's create a C time minus last min time. If I divide by 100, and if it's less than the one of the speed, that means that this should run, and last min time should be C time. And let's create game engine. Now I will be creating game engine later on. Function. Basically, this is a function which I will be creating. I am creating function collide. Firstly, I will be creating a function of is collide. I will create a game engine function later on. For the function is collide, which means basically there will be certain scenarios in this as well. The scenarios will be, I am creating a for loop. The scenarios will be whether snake hits its own body, so that if snake hits by himself to itself, then the game should end. Also, if a snake hits the wall, the game should end as well. Now I'm creating, you can say snake of i.x and snake of 0.x, and do the same for the y axis as well. You can see i.y and doing the same for the snake.0 of y. Basically what I did with the x-axis, I did the same with the y-axis and then return true. And if it's not the case, basically I'll also comment it. This is for the, which I already told you, if the snake bump into yourself or inside your own body. Now I will create if the snake bump into the wall, what should happen? If snake of 0.x greater than or equal to 18, so there is a certain length, or you can say for the walls or in the width and height. So if it increases that, it obviously means that the snake hit the wall. And I'm adding certain conditions greater than 0, and I'm basically adding for both x and both for y as well. Now return true. So if it bump into the wall, and then return false. Now let's create the game engine basically. Game engine. Now inside the game engine, I will be updating the snake food. Now you can see when a snake eats a food, the food changes its position, and basically I will change it using math or random or something. I will show you. Is collide. If is collide, I have made this function above. Then you should see here a game over sound or a music sound pause, because whenever the game over is sound play, or game ends, then the music sound should stop. Okay, I will just change dit to div dir directory, you can say, and I will give it equal to x.0 and y ratio 0 as well, and I will give an alert of game over. Press any key to play again, so that if the game is over and you press any key, then the game should start again, and I will basically initialize everything here as well. You can see I am initializing everything here, which I did in the beginning, and music play again after this, and score should be 0 as again. Now if you have eaten the food and want to increment the score, for example, if I have eaten 5 food, then the score should increase, and also regenerate the food in some other place as well. It should not be at the same place. So I will give it a snake of 0. You can basically, you might be understanding what I meant by the array of 0.y and food equal to food.y, or if the snake of array of 0, basically doing the same with the x-axis as well, which I did with the y-axis. Okay, let me check. Now basically what I will do is I will play the food sound. I told you I will be adding all the sounds and increase the score by 1. For example, whenever a snake eats a food, it should increment by 1. If score greater than high score value, basically if I already have a high score of 15 or whatever, and if I change their value, or if I get 20 in this time, then it should increase the total high score. And I will add this to the local storage. Basically, you might have, if you are familiar with JavaScript or you have understood it, you should know that I can add value to my local storage and give it an inner HTML of high score and his score in value. You can see here boxes as well. Okay, now high score, the high score box. Now I will just simply use that score box, give it an inner HTML, and inside the inner HTML I will display score, basically changing the HTML of the file. I will use the snake array, give it an unshift, an inbuilt JavaScript function, x of snake array, and give it 0.x. Basically I'm doing the same which I've already done above multiple times by now, and give the input div .x, y dot snake dot array dot y, and basically doing the save input directory y. You can change the values, and you might be after we are done you can change these, or you can comment these, you can say, and you will understand what these do. I'm just checking it if I've done something wrong. Now let's assume a equal to 2 and b equal to 16. You can change the values. I am basically creating the food on the whatever the food positioning. Basically this is for the food positioning. Now I'm using mat.random, and if a plus b minus a, multiply by mat.random, so that I get a random number every time. The food should not be at the same place every time, and doing the same for the y-axis, so it's changing between both x and y-axis. So the new food will have a new x-axis and a new y-axis basically. So it should be in a unique place every time. Now let's move the snake. Basically for the movement of the snake, I'm creating another for loop, and inside that for loop basically it will run until to the snake of length and I should be greater than or equal to 0 and I minus minus, taking the snake array and increment by 1 and using dot dot dot. So I hope you have used this before for the taking all the array values. Snake array of 0 x plus equal to input directory x. By what I mean by input directory is the variable I have used above. Snake array of 0 dot y plus equal to, basically doing the same for the y-axis as well. Now display the snake and food. I want to display both of them. Let's first display the snake. And to display the snake, I will basically take the board.inner.html. You can see that the snake should be on the board, and give it an inner HTML. Give a snake array of for each and an index. Now for each, I hope you have used this loop before. It iterates through the entire thingy. You can say snake element, give it a document or create. I'm creating an element of div. Now you might be wondering why I'm creating an element. I told you in the style.css that I'll be creating food, because in the HTML there is no food, no snake or anything. So I'll be creating basically elements inside this. I'm giving a snake element of grid row start equal to e.y, and as well with a column and e.x. Now if the index equal to 0 equal to zeros, taking the snake element class list and adding it the head of the basically snake. If it's not the case, I will get a class list and add snake to it. You can see I already added them in my style.css. Now let's take the board.append. Append child is basically the function which is already a built-in function where I can append any child or any div or any heading or any whatever basically. So I'm appending basically my head and snake or div, you can say. Now displaying the food on the screen, I'm creating another element document.div for the food. The first one I did for the displaying of the snake. Now I'm doing it for the food. Food element should be grid start row of food.y, and basically doing the grid column start should be food equal to x, and basically what I did above for the snake as well. Now food element dot class list dot add food. You can see this. You should use the same which you styled in your style.css. I use the food, so I am using it. You can see that I have used food, so I have added food. If you change the name, it won't work. Basically, it will work, but the element will be created, but it will not be styled, so you might not be able to see it on the screen. The main logics of the entire game starts here. I will just play the music of the game in the background. You might not be hearing it. Let hide score, local storage get item, getting item, high score. And if high score equal to null, then the high score value should be 0. And local storage, basically local storage which I already set them, I've given a set item of high score and JSON.stringify the high score value. And if not the case, high score is not equal to null, equal to null, then what will happen is high score should be equal to JSON.parse high score, and high score value, basically the high score box, you can say. I've already made in the HTML, and giving this high score box and inner HTML, and the inner HTML should be equal to high score plus high score, basically concatenating both. Window.request animation frame.main in main, and window.add event listener key down. Now basically the snake is moving in multiple directions, right, up, down and left, you can say. Give it an input directory of 0, x of 0 and y ratio 1, basically initializing this. Move sound play, and the sound will be moving, basically snake will be moving. Now using the switch statement for all the directions and taking the key, if arrow up, console log, basically you can. Okay, now basically input directory dot x equal to 0, and for the y equal to -1, break. Now I can copy, or maybe let's type it, case of arrow down. Basically there are four cases: arrow up, arrow down, arrow right, arrow left. And console logging, it basically just for if I have, like if I have done anything wrong, then I can check, or it's not working, then I can check in the inspect element. Now case arrow left, copy this, paste it, change it to arrow left, and change these values. X should be -1 and Y should be 0. And for the arrow right, console log arrow right basically, and copy paste it maybe, or I can type it. For the X it should be 1, and for the Y it should be 0, and break. And adding a default statement as well. Default should be break. Okay, now I think we are done. Let me see if I've done anything wrong. Let me check. Okay. Basically, yes, I forgot. You can see the basic. I removed the end bracket and I have added it there. Now you can see that the game is working for my snake, and it's so fast that I cannot even play it. And it's already done. I hope you like the video. If you like it, subscribe to the channel, and I will come with the next video. Thank you.